Uh, Welcome to Books with Al-Gazali. I'm Abdulhamid Al-Ghazali. I will be reviewing this work today with Abubakar Sadiq Haruna. Unfortunately, Lukman commitment. He will be joining us next week. Thank you very much. Today we will continue our discussion on power, politics, and death. We closed last week's edition on the note that we'll look at the subject of Abdulmutallab and Boko Haram under late President Umar Musa Yaradua. So you're welcome, Sadiq. You're welcome to the show. We'll go straight to discussing this issue of terrorism under President Umar Musa Yaradua. Segun Adeniyi had, helped us with an insider's view of some of the key decisions President Umar Musa Yaradua had to take, and how these decisions led to, in a sense, what we have today. So, giving what account we get, does that strike you as the basis? Because Adeniyi told us of the issues around Umar Farouk Abdulmutallab, and some of the immediate consequences. We now see the long-term consequences of Abdulmutallab, and then it coincided the same year, just a few months, with the incident of Boko Haram. How Yaradua reacted to it, and then other things. So, from this perspective, do you look at it as some sort of, putting Nigeria on the global map of terrorism? Do you take the root of this global phenomenon of terrorism to have taken its root from from those incidents? How do you interpret that account, and looking at some of the diplomatic consequences, what Yaradua had to say, what Robin Sanders, the U.S. ambassador to Nigeria, said, and so on, So what do you make in summary from the chapter?
Well, I think this chapter is very important in the history of Nigeria, because it is a period when Nigeria, the mention of Nigeria and terrorism were linked together.
Yes.
Particularly on a global scale, because even before that incident, Boko Haram has already launched
its attack,
first major attack on the government of the country, where it is like a mini war where so many lives are lost and properties destroyed and so forth. But when we talk about terrorism at the global scale, I think it is fair and logical to say that that period or this incident of Abdulmutallab was the beginning.
Just to correct, Umar Farouk Abdulmutallab, the senior Abdulmutallab is one of the most respected, responsible Nigerians we have from the north.
Okay, well, since we are talking about
I know the context is important. Someone will just listen to this part and then the other part, and then establish a conclusion on that.
It's true. But when since we are talking about this particular Abdulmutallab,
Umar Farouk Abdulmutallab, with emphasis.
Abdulmutallab.
Yes.
What is the full name of that?
Is the son's name is Umar Farouk Abdulmutallab.
Are we talking about
we are talking about Umar Farouk Abdulmutallab, the son. What I'm saying is that when you say Abdulmutallab, you seem to make the story around his father rather than him. And the person who got involved in that terrorist incident is Umar Farouk, not his son. And if you use the two indiscriminately like that, it seems to say that you are referring to Abdulmutallab Senior, his father, who is a very responsible Nigerian. That's my just to put it into context. Yes, that I'm just establishing a context for you as far as the usage of names. So continue. Just give us the summary as per.
Well, like I mentioned, this incident has put Nigeria at the spotlight of terrorism at the global scale, and it is very important to talk about it because I think that incident and those that follow afterwards has affected how Nigeria relates with other countries in the international scene. It has also changed our foreign policies because of so many skepticism and so forth. And I think has also brought about issues of stereotype. Like, for instance, even if you look at it from the point of the incident with Borno people, when because of this Boko Haram issue, people of this state have always been a victim of stereotype, harassment sometimes, and even stigma. So Nigeria as a nation also did not escape that at the international level. We were.
So how do you comment the reaction?
Yes.
How do you
of the
judge
government
of the government of the day?
Well, as I think if anyone that read this book will not fail to understand that Yaradua is someone, former late Yaradua is someone who is always decisive in taking decisions, because in so many instances we have seen how decisive he was in taking decisions. And unfortunately that incident happens when he was at the sick bed. Adeniyi reminded us of how when there was an attempt for him to speak with the President of the United States, but President Barack Obama at that time, but it could not be possible because of his health condition. So I think Nigeria has the country, or let's say the government, have missed that opportunity.
Yes, I think, okay, let me bring my opinion to this. Perhaps that decade was marred by quite a lot of international
events.
Perhaps it was in the same decade that, the 9/11 incident took place. But the coming of Barack Obama into the presidency of the United States of America, which was believed to be predominantly a white man's affair. Quite a lot of things. So the 9/11 incident had already changed the way in which international diplomatic relations are done in the country. Countries, especially the US, is on the watch out for potentials for violence and so on. So, but the way in which it was reported at that time was was as if this was a Nigerian affair.
Yes.
That Nigerians have plotted a terrorist attack on the US. And that was to generalize an individual folly and blame it on a whole nation. At first, that was what the incident is, because at that time, Nigerians, yes, are familiar with violent groups and violence spontaneously occurring in places here and there, the Nadeko, the Jos crisis, the militancy in the Niger Delta, the Metacine of the 80s, and quite a lot of other. But then that was a period in which extremism was at its peak. Extremist narratives, religious extremism was on the high side, and I think the world was less informed about the dangers of terrorism, such that extremist narratives were flooding every household. Many families were only too lucky not to have equivalent of such people as Abubakar Shakau, Muhammad Yusuf. Many families, because families were not even, filtering or censoring what information comes in. In fact, even parents play narratives of I know people who named their children Osama bin Laden. I know townships that are named Afghanistan and so on. The root of this is largely fundamentalist religious narratives from virtually almost all the major religions. I think it dates back to the late 90s, from say the Iranian Revolution and so on, and then the stiff rejection of religion of Islam in such cases as the Middle East, in the case of Israel, so the international space has been taken over by extremist narratives. Abdulmutallab, Umar Farouk got trapped in that web of extremist narratives, and he came so close to it that it was easy for him to be indoctrinated. He was indoctrinated by an Al-Qaeda network, which was doing everything possible to target young people like that. They were scouting for young people who have the energy, the zeal, and whose maturity is not full enough, really deep enough to identify what is extremism and what is not. And he fell into he is largely known to be a very committed Muslim, very concerned about his spiritual state and faith and so on. But then these were the targets of these Al-Qaeda and terrorist organizations. And then the reason why I'm emphasizing on religious extremism is the fact that Al-Qaeda itself was a reaction to what appeared to be an extreme rejection of the Islamic faith and what is happening to particularly the Palestinians from immediately after the Second World War. So these things were going on. By 2000, the consequences, the implications for this have already reached Nigeria. It actually reverberated in Nigeria in the early 2000s, but not even before that.
Yes.
There were these groups, the IMN, the formation of what we now have in the version of MSS, which are all over our universities and in the north and so on. These were as semblances, as symptoms of the penetration of extremism into our cycles. And 2009 became, because 9/11 was celebrated in certain Muslim cycles. So all because Muslims do not see the dangers of extreme, beside every other thing people say.
Yes.
But people at that time celebrated extremism. It is only when it hit them right on the head before they began to really say, see, Boko Haram is this terrorism is truly a bad thing. So I think the case of Abdulmutallab was a clear context for us to understand the way in which terrorism became a commodity in those periods, and their sudden reverberation across the world prepared our minds to really understand that, well, that was much a danger to Islam. It was much more a danger to religion than any advantage. I think that is the context from which we understand. Segun here told us that he was in Ilorin. The president is already on his sick bed, very sadly for the country, when this incident happened. He said the ADC, the president, immediately got in touch with him because CNN was already reporting it. So the government has to be in public relations. The government has to wade in before a narrative will be created. In TV and in journalism, as you know very well, once the headlines go viral, it will be hard to do any damage control. Probably large percentage of those who read the first version of the news are not likely to return to. So the government was out. Even when the country was literally on an autopilot, no president, so nobody was giving directives. The country had to, devise a way in which it could shape, to respond. Unfortunately, it was such a sad thing. The President Umar Yaradua wasn't wasn't strong enough to wade in, but when he had shown that in the case of extremism, he had always indicated that he is much more a moderate, level-headed person, and he would have dissociated from Umar Farouk. I can imagine what would have been his response.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even later on, some of the response that is coming from the government shows you that Yaradua at least has understand the dangers of this.
Yes.
Because of some of the decisions he has made.
Yes.
Like how decisive he was on tackling the issue. And another important thing I think is when you mention how this extremism ideology came into Nigeria. Obviously, even before that incident, we believe that there is this ideological formations in the country. But when you look at it critically, Umar Abdulmutallab spent most of his childhood, or let's say youthful age, outside Nigeria. We had that
he even had
he did his secondary school
in Togo
he started in the UK, and then attended another school in Togo, and then he also had a degree in still in the United Kingdom. So it is, I think, logical to say that he made this ideologies, and maybe he was even recruited into such activity.
But don't forget,
outside Nigeria, and even his arrest, before he was arrested, it was said that he spent only 30 minutes in Nigeria before proceeding to attempt to launch that attack.
Yeah.
So, but still, the narration was strictly painted as a Nigerian affair
at first.
time.
At first.
So
what we are trying to say is that the Nigerian state had done tremendously well in putting this, in insisting that the story must be said according to available facts. Nigerian government refused to be blamed as an institution for the incident, and I think we must commend our institutions. As bad as we think Nigeria is, there were times Nigerian institutions had really done so well, but commonly when things are good, you know, they are not reported.
And this issue of scholarship, we have had in so many instances, even outside Nigeria, that most of these ideologies are carried by students who mostly went to other countries to for studies. Do we now say that scholarship has contributed to this dissemination of extremism ideologies in the global scale?
Is it a case of scholarship? It is not.
Yes.
It is not a case of. It is a case of probably foreign studies.
Foreign studies, yes.
But that is not also a very convincing argument, because how, compared to the number of people who had to go to these countries, the number is very insignificant. But one thing was clear at that time: parents should have been much more aware than they may probably were, because across the world, young people are targeted for indoctrination, and if you don't monitor his everyday routines, even when he may have started exhibiting new traits that are unusual. So career, sometimes the mistake we make is that we put career, we separate career and morality. We choose career over morality, even though career and morality are largely, to a very large extent, intertwined, or even the same thing. So parents will take what this is happening. You send your children 16, 17 abroad to go and study, and they don't return until after a year or two. You don't know some of the new traits they may have learned. And before you know, when they are back, they have transformed into an entirely different set of people. So career cannot come before one's moral well-being, because that stands to destroy the career. We must insist that career and morality cannot be separated.
Yes, and I think even when you look at this issue of scholarship or
foreign
studies, even in the local context, many people believe that majority of people who constitute Boko Haram are largely Almajiris, or how we call them, Almajiris, and many of them are, for instance, in Borno State, we have many Almajiris who come from different states, and many people believe that, like I said, they are those who constitute almost the larger part of Boko Haram members at the beginning. So is it still?
That's not correct.
Yeah.
That conclusion is not correct.
It's not a conclusion. I said it's a belief, and
belief are built around facts. It means it is established belief.
Yes.
That is largely wrong. At first, Boko Haram was made up of people who have gone to Western school. Many people had to tear down their certificates to join the group. It was targeted at school age people, youth, regardless of, because when you want to destroy people, you target the youth. When they are destroyed, that population is gone. So the only argument is that we have to ensure that we have to understand that we have the responsibility of providing the society as parents responsible, qualified, competent young people. If competence should be seen within the context of a good moral conduct and expertise in whatever field. That's the point I want to say. But even Umar Farouk thought that he was becoming a morally upright person, a much more religious person, even much more than his parents. That was a mistake. So what morality is sometimes very tricky for a young man. Being close to their parents, being under their watch every day is important. And people say Umar Farouk is a nice guy, easygoing. He didn't indicate that people in his neighborhood think he was level-headed. So that is the power of indoctrination. People who are good at indoctrination are also good at converting otherwise well brought up young people who are moderate, who are level-headed, but because they're experts at that, they can turn you into an entirely different person overnight. He went to Yemen for 1 year course in Arabic, in Arabic language, but he later on decided to cut off from his family, and within that period, all these things happened. When you look at the story of Abdulmutallab, Umar Farouk, the story of Muhammad Yusuf, and other people around him, it tells you the kind of antics played against young people across the world. The recruiters, people who recruit into terrorism, know who they are targeting. They know who they are targeting. They are targeting young people. They are targeting people who have strong spiritual connection to their religion and so on. So that part helps us to understand what was all out in the public space at that time, as far as terrorism was concerned, because probably the case of Umar Farouk only destroyed the agenda. Most probably, when that did not go down well, when people saw the reactions, even previous people. People who were also indoctrinated decided to take backseat and say, see, there is nothing good in that. At the end of the day, it won't go down well, and so on. But yeah,
I think another important interesting aspect related to this chapter is that you see one of the first major attack by Boko Haram was just few months between this.
Before that,
is it after?
It's before. Boko Haram's attack was in July 2009.
Yes, it was.
The
Umar Farouk issue
is in December 2009.
Yes.
After, yes.
So there is this argument that when the first major attack was launched by Boko Haram, it was seen basically in Nigeria as like a Borno state affairs, or maybe a northeast affairs. But that Umar Farouk incident, I think, has raised a lot of concern, not only globally, even within Nigeria. The whole nation began to see the threat related to terrorism, and I think that was a very important period when, unfortunately, it's an unfortunate incident, but it has raised I think it has.
Okay, let me put this out. Borno was Borno has never been fundamentalist throughout history.
Yes.
In terms of its version of Islam. It only started showing these threats from the 90s through to the early 21st century, the first decade, 2000.
Yes.
But violence has been there are aspects of violent activities going on in some parts of the country. Nobody treated Boko Haram as an affair of Borno State. This followed after the 2009 attack, and even the 2009 attack concurrently occurred in Bauchi, I think parts of Kano and other parts of the north. So, but when the attack was, when the situation was contained, it was restricted largely to Borno and Yobe, and because of the reactions, the reaction of the terrorists after they were decimated, people thought that it is just a Borno Yobe affair. What Borno and Yobe are treated as one largely. So it was treated as a Borno affair. The only it is with these bandits that Nigerians begin to treat terrorism, violence as a national affair. Because it's affair only after their regrouping in 2011, when they started launching targeted assassinations and killings here and there, and people said, okay, they're killing their politicians, their people, their leaders, that's their affair. But when Boko Haram started striking in churches in Kaduna, in Kano, in Abuja and other communities outside the northeastern Nigerians were awakened to the reality.
Let's look at how government response on these issues.
Okay.
You see, Jonathan, the former president, Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, came into power at the center of these issues, and we have seen how he has run the government throughout his regime. We have also seen how Yaradua treated issues in the short span of his time in government. Will do we will and let's look at the current situation we are in now due to Boko Haram crisis. Will there have been a different narration had it been Yaradua was alive and not Goodluck Jonathan? Do you think, looking at both of them, how what influence their decision making and how they take decisions and so forth, do we?
Okay, I think we should go back to
Yes.
Yaradua himself first before Goodluck. What was Yaradua's response?
Yes.
Yaradua gave marching orders that they should be taken out. Troops should be mobilized, and he seems to say that this affair should be dealt with by the time I'm back in the country. That he had achieved, because in a matter of 5 days, Mohammed Yusuf was arrested.
Yes.
And the crisis was contained. The streets were now safe. People moved around. People forgot in a matter of months until they regrouped, returned late 2010, and became widespread by 2011, killing people selectively. Yeah. The issue is Yaradua was decisive, and if he had survived, if he had lived through to the end of his regime, or had a second regime, most probably he would have succeeded in ending what he had started much better than President Goodluck Jonathan. The only problem is that, don't forget, there was a fundamental problem with how Mohammed Yusuf was arrested and killed. It was believed to have been extrajudicially done. And there is one thing with injustice. In a society, people will continue to fight what they believe is an injustice, whether logical or not. Mohammed Yusuf had been in the court several times, even before the crisis. His people will go to the courts. Lawyers will be drawn from his team. I remember this popular lawyer who had continued to stay to represent him, but lawyers will be contracted to defend him, and so on. So they had some confidence in the legal system. If they could appear before the court and so on. But when he was killed, the manner in which he was killed is still a mystery. Who gave the orders? Why? What were the reasons? They are still not very clearly answered. And there is one quality Yaradua had displayed as a president. He has a way of looking at things in the long run, in the long term. That was how he was able to contain with the militancy in to deal with the militants in the Niger Delta, because he realized that he shouldn't overstretch the crisis with application of force. He thought that a much more moderate approach will yield faster and better results and enduring results, which we can attest to today. So many people did not see the potential of the Boko Haram incident gravitating or becoming a bigger issue in the long run. I think Yaradua would have most probably understood the long-term implication of that crisis, he would have categorically ended that incident much rather comprehensively if the resurgence came at the time before his death. I strongly think, but good luck came, even though he was part of the regime. At first, they thought that these were small pockets of crisis far away in a remote part of the country that could not constitute major problem to the country and so on. And every day Boko Haram kept on proving that, see, we are here for a long ride. So my thought is, if it were Yaradua, most probably things wouldn't have been the same.
And yes, looking at how the crisis was approached immediately after the containment of the crisis at first at the war during 2010-11, before they were regrouped, I think there is a bit of unseriousness, I think, in on the part of the government in pursuing this crisis. When the war broke in and then Umar was arrested, was killed later on, and his members were not visibly seen attacking people and so forth. I think there is a bit of reluctance in pushing further to arrest the problem entirely. And is it logical to say that that is what manifests into what we are today? I don't.
But we didn't. Yeah, most probably. But let us not forget that this crisis was brewing since 2001-2, and in 2006 or 2005, the reaction the government took, the measures taken by the government against the terrorists, was what further escalated it. It was what emboldened them. Mohammed Yusuf will preach and say that, see, we are under an ungodly system. Those in power are corrupt. People, they steal government properties, and so on and so on. President Obasanjo didn't like you, and so on. He kept on saying that. What was the response? Ali Sharif brought in Operation Flush, who came with a heavy-handed approach that further caused a lot of grievances in the society. Many people were on the side of Boko Haram because of the heavy-handedness of the Operation Flush. That's the truth. People were asked to kneel down on the streets. Market people were harassed, old people harassed, and so on. So everyone was agitated already. And Mohammed just said that, see, these things we are seeing vindicates me. They were the things I've been telling you.
So he took advantage.
He took advantage of that. I think that also helped him recruit many people. when they first came out to publicly to openly fight the government, some of them realized that it was really silly, it made no sense, and they withdrew and then reintegrated back to the society. But some of them went further to regroup, became very they received some training, and they were much more violent when they came back. Now government was confused how to respond to that. The state government, because we have a fundamental problem with the structure of Nigeria, the structure of our institutions. It was a question of whether this is a problem of the state or the federal government. Yes, the immediate effect was on the state and her people, but the party responsible for dealing with it is largely the federal government. So the police belongs to the federal government, the army belongs to the federal government, and most of the almost all the security institutions, all of them were under the federal government. Now the federal government happens to be a PDP led government, and
in Borno we have an ANPP.
Yes, and we had a governor who, to be very honest, at the beginning thought that, you know, this federal government is not for me, most probably, and rather than to put aside the political differences and, you know, fully engage them, fully say that, see, this work with the federal government, there was what appeared much like, you know, crying out, say that, see, this federal government is not for us. There was something like that. But then again, the federal government deployed troops, went as far as to declaring state
of emergency.
Yes, emergencies.
Even that declaration was, some people, it was given a different kind of narration. Yeah, it was said that it's because of he is not from the ruling party.
Yes,
so
yes,
it's just an attempt to switch power, or is it from his hands?
Yes, in fact, some people, when the troops were deployed, a whole new a military division, the 7th division, was established. Thousands of soldiers and officers were posted to as the federal government's response. I do not think for one President Jonathan as an individual will take joy in the killing of Nigerians wherever they are, whether they are from the north or the south. No president would ever wish, because that challenge, that is a challenge of to the president. It challenges your ego. How would I, as a president, be seated here while some a collection of 500, 1,000 terrorists will be killing my my subjects just like that? And that was enough on to really challenge any president. Nigeria, people have a way of saying that Nigerian presidents only work for their people. That is not correct. Yeah, sometimes at the subconscious level you will do certain things that will reflect your inclination, but killing of Nigerians, I do not think there will be any president who will be a party to that. So the rest, the military operated largely independently without incorporating the community, and I think even the state government was not fully involved. The orders were coming from the president or from the top echelons of the army, and that prevented the state government from offering advice, from being part of some of, because there was a time Borno Elders Forum, I will remember very well, went out to say that, see, we draw the joint task force. They were killing people, and that was true. The joint task force, who didn't know who was who, but were coming under continuous killings and attacks on troops were killed, their formations were bombed. They responded by also killing whosoever that was around. Many people were killed. In fact, that's one thing. People are saying that when we say we are better off under this regime than we were, people miss one very important thing. Those days, we were not only under the threat of Boko Haram, troops were killing innocent people. They burned streets, whole street. This Sabonlai from NUJ Junction, way into Gwenge, was almost entirely burnt. People were, that was most probably the earliest internal displacement.
And we can even remember what led to that incident was not even the Boko Haram affair. I think it was a story of how is it a military personnel who has something to do with a lady in the area, and then it comes there was a misunderstanding between him and some young people in the area, and then it led to a fight, and that was, I think,
no, I think the real
and
story
it leads
was
to even the killing of the
real story was that a soldier fell in love with a young girl in that community, but members of Boko Haram in that community felt that to them every soldier is an infidel.
Since he's working for the
government. So they said that he has no right to have an affair with this lady, and much more so that one of them also fell for the girl, and so there was a warning that no one should see that girl. A soldier will not take such a warning.
Ordinarily.
Not even ordinarily. There is no circumstance under which a soldier is supposed to take that warning. Under normal circumstances, I don't think. So he went on, continued to see the girl, and when after the expiration of the warning, they still saw the soldier with the girl. What was their response? Burn him alive. He was burnt. Now, that was a major provocation. Who these people were, he could not tell. His colleagues could not tell. They burnt him, ran away. And then when troops came back, nobody could offer any explanation. But their worry is that how could the local the community, how would they have allowed such a thing to happen? And how could they not offer any explanation? That to them was never possible. at least they could have known who these people, in which case they will help the troops identify them. But nobody could offer this explanation. Nobody stopped it. Now, what was their response? They said, okay, then they are all parties to what had happened. As such, we would respond in equal terms. So they began to set houses on fire and started shooting people, random shooting, spontaneous. People could not withstand it. They started fleeing. They ran away. So
and they
burned. So there wasn't enough zeal, really, to actually look at it as a social political problem. It was conceived much more as a security issue. But every security issue has a social, political, and economic dimension, which was missed at that time. The troops did not ever sit down to say, okay, how do we work on identifying these terrorist groups? Where are they? Will be identified, killed, and no one to protect them. I think that was the context in which the Boko Haram crisis the escalation of the crisis can be understood. It was a bad situation, but handled in a way that was even worse. I think that is one thing we should.
Okay, I think another thing is let's look at the emergence of Abubakar Shekau after the killing of Muhammad Yusuf. We all know how such groups operate. When their leader is killed, they form, someone will take charge and then they continue. And when Muhammad Yusuf was killed in 2019, maybe I'm younger, I have no idea of how the government respond to these issues, and maybe also Adeniyi has failed to tell us how, if there is any attempt to say, okay, who is the second in command in this, or who are their leaders, to make an extra effort to arrest them or find them. Is there any arrest warrant or a wanted notice on people to arrest Shekau and these top military leaders? I can't remember.
The situation was badly handled.
Yes,
you are right. It was badly handled. But otherwise, Shekau was known even before Mohammed Yusuf. It was much more dreaded. I had listened to Shekau. I had cause to even listen to a live session of Shekau in which he churned out much more dangerous things. I am very surprised till date why some people fail to see the danger in those things he was saying. But Shekau was much more. But Shekau fled. He fled. In fact, when Shekau and Mamanur issued, see, this factionalization of Boko Haram into ISWAP and JAS, it was not. The rudiments were from the very beginning. We are way back. The rudiments were since 2004-05.
Even when
Muhammad because even Muhammad Yusuf was treated. He came under intense criticism from people like Shekau, who said that he has lost zeal in their own ideal. They were threatening him. In fact, a day to the crisis, people said that Shekau openly threatened him that he will take over and so on. So Shekau is known to be much more derided from the very beginning. But when the crisis, when the first incident occurred, and Mohammed Yusuf arrested, Shekau fled, and many of them went underground. They moved out to communities where they were not known. The only thing is that there were no much effort at tracking them, as you rightly said. They were not known in other communities. Ordinarily, there should have been notices, posters everywhere declaring them wanted, but nobody foresaw this incident. I think the good thing about fighting terrorism is that it will teach you a lesson. Africa, largely Nigeria, has a problem fighting terrorism. The issue is that we don't have the history of fighting guerrilla. Countries like Zimbabwe, South Africa, where there were guerrilla groups during nationalists. They are probably better equipped. But I think after we contain with Boko Haram and bandits, our military will be one of the best in the world, and the world will have to learn from Nigeria how to end terrorism. In fact, what we have done, even as it is one of the most fundamental, one of the greatest military displays. We have contained with this crisis. We have brought this crisis under control within
a short period,
within less than 10 years. Elsewhere, it takes 10
several.
So I think we have our time is up.
Yes.
This conversation has to go on.
Yes.
There is a lot to say, but then I think we have done enough for this chapter. I will proceed. There will be a better session to discuss Boko Haram and other things. So thank you very much for being part of this show. We'll continue next week, Wednesday. Thank you, Bakar Muhammad Haruna, for joining, and thank you for listening. Have a good day.